Melania Trump begins to embrace new role as First Lady as her popularity soars and she begins spending more time at the White House and less in Manhattan. Melania Trump is slowly beginning to embrace her new position as First Lady as her approval ratings soar and she takes on more roles at her husband's side. The shift was noticeably marked at her speech given to high-powered women in honor of International Women's Day on Wednesday. It marked a coming out, almost 2 months into President Donald Trump's term, for a First Lady described by her husband as a very private person. She had spent a couple of weeks hunkered down at the family's midtown Manhattan penthouse while Trump got down to work in Washington. Now, the former model is taking her first steps into her very public new role. Americans seem to be thrilled that their First Ladies has re-emerged into the spotlight, as Mrs. Trump's popularity has seen a dramatic spike since Inauguration Day in late January. A new CNN/ORC poll shows that 52% of citizens hold a favorable view of Melania, up from the 36% who said they approved of her in the early weeks of 2017. The new poll was conducted March 1 to 4, before she held her first big luncheon at the White House yesterday, to mark International Women's Day. The First Lady's invitation for high-powered women to join her at the White House was about more than the lunch they would eat. Mrs. Trump strode into the state dining room for her first solo White House event after an announcer intoned, "Ladies and gentlemen, the First Lady of the United States, Melania Trump," and was greeted by the all-female group of about 50 people, including ambassadors, cabinet members, at least one U.S. senator and stepdaughter Ivanka Trump. It's customary for the White House Visitor's Office to close temporarily during a change in administration since political appointees do the work. But this year's shutdown lasted longer than usual, frustrating members of Congress who are responsible for distributing White House public tour tickets to constituents. Tours resumed earlier this week after a more than 6-week pause. Speculation about whether the Trumps would continue the annual Easter egg roll on the South Lawn had been mounting until they announced this week that it will be held on April 17. The First Lady's popularity has risen 16 percentage points since the January 20 inauguration, according to recent polling by CNN, climbing to 52%, from 36%. Kate Anderson Brower, author of First Women, said the public sees Mrs. Trump as a calming force and as someone who has embraced being a mother. "She's really the polar opposite of him," she said, noting that the First Lady barely tweets, unlike her husband's daily Twitter habit. Mrs. Trump also hadn't been seen in public for several weeks after the inauguration, whereas the president appears on camera most days of the week. "I think most people find it endearing that she doesn't crave the spotlight in a way that he clearly does," Brower said. Harris said the public is giving Mrs. Trump a little bit of a honeymoon period but predicted the mood will change if she doesn't move to the White House.